Right, there you go. There you go. Good morning, everybody.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Hello and welcome to new exciting Sunday. Sunday is the day when Sil actually shared the story more. Like, okay, we actually move forward in the story. The rest of the week, we just explore the story Sil shared on Sundays. And the weekdays, we get the opportunity to explore it more, to do the capital R reading and extract moreness and value out of it. But Sunday is the day, the new Sunday, new chapter, new something new in the story we are reading. The story is about Biella, and now we are into the Ursula part of it, and many other characters are coming in to make it more interesting. So this is exactly for me personally. I feel like okay, I have a chance to be in a like really. A highly sophisticated philosophical club member. I just got an opportunity where all the philosophers are there just interacting, they're discussing profound ideas. And I can just have some sneak peek into this. These people don't act like philosophers or intellectuals or anything big. They act, they behave, they be just very normal, very usual people. But what they share is so unusual. What they share is so profound because everything, whatever they do and whatever they say, has many implications. Nothing is random, everything is deliberate, deliberately chosen, deliberately crafted. So whatever they are doing, first, the focal point or the main pillar of or the foundation of everything they share is the intent to goodness. Of course, this is the pillar. So everything else, once we keep reminding ourselves and keep remembering this, that the intent is good, then everything else makes sense. Even if it
Yes.
doesn't make sense immediately, but just by trusting that the intent is good, then we shift our focal point from that, okay, yes, from now on, I'm going to see everything, perceive everything from the lens of that good intent.
Mm.
It doesn't going to like it doesn't change anything from their side, but it does change my perspective, my receptivity. It opens up the receptivity. What if the intent is good? Okay, this thing, this perspective, this perception is not making sense to me right now, but what if the intent is good? That is the lens we choose deliberately in this story, especially because whatever the new nobles and aspirants and anyone in the story share, it is deliberately chosen, deliberately crafted, deliberately shared. So if we just keep this one thing in our mind, that the intent is good, this is our lens. Through this, we are going to perceive whatever they are going to share. Everything makes sense. And
Yes.
if it does, we actually craft, we create the sense out of it. It doesn't matter. It is not going to bother us or our perception that it was their own intent was good or not. Even we can just set it aside. But we assume, we see things, we perceive things as their intent is good. And then we see the whole different perspective. Now things becomes more joyful for us. Things become more profound for us. Things start giving us more value. So it's not for them to show their trust on like, okay, yes, I know that that person, okay, has a good intent. It is for us. When I see things from this understanding, this lens of good intent, that whatever they're saying, it is with good intent. And everything start making sense. And no matter what, I get value. And this is the real core issue of the core essence of this story. The intent is,
Yes.
and now see the thing. It's like putting your 3D glasses on and then watch a movie. Then everything will make sense. Otherwise, everything will is going to just hit you directly on your head. So the good intent is the lens we are going to, the glasses we are going to choose to see things and perceive things. And Sil is going to share the new chapter in the story. I
Yes.
think
Well, it's part two of this chapter, but
yes.
it's kind of new. I mean, it should really be broken up
This
into
is
two
exactly
separate
what
chapters.
I was
Yeah.
about to say.
Oh,
That
sorry,
it
sorry.
isn't that it's a new chapter or a new part
Yeah.
of it. It doesn't matter because every new conversation they have on itself is a whole complete thing, the complete book in itself, because it doesn't have to be in connection with the previous or in future thing. In itself, they are complete, all the conversation, even just a small interaction with two people like Biella or Cornelius, what they are doing, if we don't know the whole story, if we don't know the previous chapter, if we don't know the next chapter, it doesn't matter. We can still get value. We can still see that how much actually integrated in this just one interaction between two people like Biella and Cornelius, or Biella and Ursula or Cornelius, or whoever. All the aspirants and new nobles have this ability that you don't need any previous information. You can still get value.
However,
yes.
Go ahead.
So what I was saying that, okay, I can just pick one or two slides and start exploring it with this understanding that the intent is good. And now if I look at it and then see that, okay, there is a moreness into that, I can extract tons of value out of it without having any information about previous or coming up story. Yes, you would think, however.
I'm just saying, no, you mentioned it there in this extracting the moreness. So I want to emphasize that however is that when we look at this story and we simply look at it as a story, we have to consider in this particular story that if we are going to connect to the full value, we have to imagine there's more than we are seeing right away. Right?
Right.
When you first look at the story, when you first look at, let's just take in the last scene leading up to this, where Biella and Cornelius are discussing Ursula's comment. And Biella shares perspectives, understandings, insights, moreness, extended context, extended awareness in such a way that she takes care of Cornelius, whether he knows it or not. Either way, it's done where she's anticipating potential problems and taking care of it before they can be problems. So if you just look at it, she's just making a comment. If you just read it in a very ordinary way, okay, that's interesting. But when you see the intent and the sophistication behind it and the strategy, wow. Well, to do that implies a whole lot of moreness in order for her to be able to do what she's doing and what she did. Right? This says a lot about Biella. Now we're in a whole different world of sophistication and moreness. This is the key to reading the story, to look for that which lies beyond what we typically see and recognize. Otherwise, we won't see it. Yes? We won't notice it. We have to make that effort. It's a profound effort and a very big deal. It's not a simple matter in the least. Not in the least. Very well. All right. This is too magical. I was busy writing, but we'll come to that in a moment. It's kind of a big deal going on here in the story. It's moreness coming into it. We'll start reading in a moment. And talking about moreness and goodness and intent to goodness and all sorts of wonderful stuff. Who's joined us? Norma. Good morning, Norma. Yes. Is that who's there, right? Beena?
Yes, I'm just going to look at it now.
Oh, hello, Norma. I'm thrilled you're here. You know, I was thinking of so many. I'm keen to hear this particular part of the story. I did leave message there in the CCC group. You know, we spoke about this on Matt's live the other day with a Ask Me Anything live. The conversation was a deep conversation on freedom. And I shared some points, but I didn't elaborate all the way. Otherwise, I'd be speaking all the time. I didn't want to do that there. This freedom to be yourself, freedom to not only be yourself, but freedom to find yourself. Freedom also of psychology within ourselves, to be able to act when we see a path to ourselves. Big deal. Big deal. Big, 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 big deal. Yes. So I shared the link here to the live there, because also this is about surrender, which came up as a big topic there. Now, surrender is not a particular concept or conception that I'm very fond of, because it carries a lot of baggage, and it's a very nuanced, layered word. We want to surrender, but without surrendering. So yes, in that sense, from a way of impeccability conception, we can use it as surrender without surrendering, or surrendering without surrendering. And yes, then it's very powerful. It's like trusting without trusting. Other than that, from the new nobility point of view, and from way of impeccability point of view, which of course is the foundation for the new nobility, it is about attunement, but it's also attuning to yourself and to what really, really matters to your capital S self. Yes? Very, very important. Wouldn't you say, Beena?
Yes.
Now, to set up this coming chapter, we are looking at Ursula says, I want to be an aspirant. And this is a big deal, because Ursula's not the typical aspirant. Ursula's in the normal, usual way of things, very successful. She's about to be the leader of her world, the whole world. And she's extremely wealthy and successful, has won awards for different things. And she's, accomplished in a whole variety of fields, right? So for her to be for her to be an aspirant, this is essentially giving up all of that life that she's worked for her whole life, and which others covet and desire, and to them is the biggest thing ever. And yes, she's saying no. By implication, there's more. And a quote that ends the previous chapter. She says, it's humbling to realize that when one has had the right of it all our lives, there's a more right out there. And everyone takes this comment. Biella thinks it's a very profound comment on the situation. She understands it, and it's really good for her. And she doesn't think too much about it, except that it's a perfect punctuation. But then Camillus, the next day, he's debating on this, and he has some trouble with it. And as they come, she comes upon him thinking it through, and they're about to discuss this comment further. And they start, and some of the aspirants, the group, Biella's friends, other aspirants, they're just called the group in the story. Aki and Nora and Kaljun and Marco and Hermumt and the collective and so on. They start to question and discuss this with Ursula, but then they realize there's not much more they can share. They'll be speculating without further sharing from Ursula. And here's where we come. Ursula is now going to elaborate on her comment and what went into it. So I'm so pleased you're here, Norma. I'm so pleased you're here. And just on a quick point, I was thinking, so that's what I was sharing on this, and I shared that we're going to be doing this point of Ursula's profound capital S surrender. And again, I'm cautious to use that word, but I used it in the context because of our discussion on that other live with freedom. Surrender came into it as a big topic. But we are going to see that it is an element here. But when we look at it rather as an act of attunement, of greater connectivity, and as an act of profound honesty, we are going to have a very different view on what's coming from Ursula. Yes? Wonderful. Where's Sher? Sher said she was going to try and be here, but I guess no, she's not here yet. All right, no worries. I was thinking of tagging everybody, But it's all right. I'll just catch it on the replay. I'm happy that it's just us here. And this is a very intimate part of the story too. So it's nice just having just a few of us. Yeah, it's very nice. And well, just the three of us now, which is fantastic. I love it. Very well, very well, very well, very well. I shall screen share. There we go.
Yes.
My background is also I usually choose the background for the lives as the image from the starting image, usually where the quotes are, as you'll see in a moment. Yes, us and Ursula, thank you. Thank you. Yes, yes. So,
Yes.
well, it is, yes, it is. It's Norma and Beena and Ursula and me. I love that. I love that. I love that you included Ursula. It's very beautiful, Norma. that really makes it. Yes, yes, yes. Wonderful, wonderful. Ursula the Aspirant, Chapter 5, Part 2. Becoming a different you brings on the next level. Sometimes we arrive somewhere only to find it's the start. Character is our underpinning. Character is what remains when all else goes to hell. The path is the path. It's the destination and the beginning in every moment. Ursula A.
I love this. Of course, all of the quotes are so amazing, but
Yes,
especially the last one. This is
yes,
exactly what we need. Okay, at least I can say about myself. What I need to keep it always in forefront of my consciousness all the time. The
yes.
path is the path. It's a destination and the beginning in every moment.
That's the key. That's why I added the comma. Because it's not only that, that quote can be shortened to say the path is the path, or the path is the destination and the beginning. And I think sometimes you see that. Yeah. But Ursula adds that extra element, that extra layer, which profoundly adds so much moreness to it. Yes. She says,
Yes.
in every moment. That's a big
Exactly.
difference. That's a big difference. The sophistication of that is huge. It's huge. Very beautiful, Ursula. Actually, let me do something. I want to show this picture that because it cuts it off here because it's being used as a background. So we don't get to see the entire picture, and it is worth seeing. It is worth seeing. I'll have it in a second here. There we go. Just got to rearrange things. Oh, guess now it's at the bottom. Oh, really? Where are you, picture? I just downloaded it again because I couldn't find it to add as the background. Oh, well. Oh, well. Oh, that's a pity. It's such a gorgeous picture, and I wanted to show the full picture of it. I don't understand why it's not here now.
Okay, but we are digressing from the
Yes,
performance
yes,
of the
yes, yes, yes. Oh, I looked in the wrong place. Here we go. I knew I had it. I knew I had it. I'm coming, Beena. I'm coming. I'm coming. See? Just, I thought this was a really nice picture of either Biella or Ursula. or any of the aspirants. All right, I'll continue. All right, I'm getting distracted. Now we have a comment from the gods. Jesus took in the entire council, a firmness emanating from him like a balm for a long unhealed wound. We resonate with Camillus, with his astute insights, his deep wisdoms, his understandings of more. Yet, this I fear also. As a council, our focus on individuals at this level of discernment is new for us, different, very different. And with these particular individuals, this focus has led me to think we have never ever made any effort to resolve or find solutions to problems we didn't even know we had yet. Is this not what Biella's been doing? Not only anticipating, but acting in ways which deal with those problems before they even have a chance to be problems. How much effort has gone into the preparation and practice for being so able? How much effort has gone into the preparation and practice for being so able? Not all the gods received this perspective particularly well. As a collective, not well at all. Realizing one did not have the right of it when that's been the guiding principal focus is not easy. None too stirred. None too story. A crafty and somewhat ambitious young woman came upon a town along the banks of a river. The mayor of this town had a fine son, whom the young woman eyed with delight. This town deeply connected to the river as its source of trade and well-being. The mayor regarded himself an angler and had a peculiar passion for the activity. All who sought favor had to do so via some connectivity to this slanted focus of his. Far and wide was known his collection of fishing tackle. He had a large hall where lay displayed all the different kinds of hooks and spinners, sinkers and floaters, baits and lures, and all manner of fishing equipment. The young woman approached the mayor. If I can feed the whole town with one day's fishing, will you give me your son's hand in marriage? The mayor laughed at this bold and outrageous request. Sure, sure. If you can do that, you can have him, and I'll even throw the biggest wedding party this town has even seen. Laughing with much amusement, he put the young woman from his mind. All sorts petitioned important persons like himself. The young woman, however, truly was crafty. She did have a plan. She did know how to fish. Off she went, using her amazing and particular fishing method. She spent the day fishing and indeed did manage to collect enough fish to feed the whole town. A spectacular achievement. On bringing all this fish to the town, she had to enlist some of the young men to help her. The mayor was astounded, as were the young men, all who regularly competed and tried, all to find and catch the biggest fish to impress the mayor. But this feat of fishing, this was unheard of. This was impossible. None ever thought it could be so. How had the young woman done so? Wow. The other young women were outraged. How could she have done this? How could she have done this? They too fished. They fished with a passion. They fished to support. They fished to live. They fished to impress. Yet here she came. The young woman, however, was truly crafty. When next she was asked to go fishing, she went along, but she had to disguise who she was. She did not show or reveal her particular technique and method. Instead, she showed herself to be somewhat of a bungler, confused, inept, and soon they put her from their mind. The rest of the story to follow. There's more to the story. I just want to start this idea in the story that Nintu's going to share is a story of perceptions and strategy. And we'll get to that. Yes, Beena.
Still, Yes, Ramzi is here first. Hello, Ramzi.
Oh, brilliant, 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 brilliant.
And
Most excellent.
also that the slide hasn't changed for me. Is this
Oh,
for you?
right. Well, I haven't written it all out yet, so I was just reading it from this in my mind. So
Ah, okay. I was confused.
I didn't have time to finish writing it out. That's what I was busy writing just before. Uh,
Okay,
but
fair enough.
I'm going to finish the story. There's a lot to the story. And it's a story of moreness, and it's a story about solving problems that we didn't know we had yet. And it's the theme for the chapter that we're about to read.
Okay,
Right. So now we are going to start with Ursula's share, right?
okay.
Right here. So well done. I'm just glad you came right at the perfect time, Ramsey. So this is where we left off from the previous, the first half of the chapter, right? Where the aspirants are saying, but we can't go any further, and they look to Ursula, and Ursula is going to comment on her comment that she made. Ursula visibly gathered herself. The group so supportive, so open, they held nothing back and left nothing behind. The open purity of the earnestness palpable. She resolved to honor that spirit of these discussions as best she could. There'd be no holding back. I am, very successful on my world, Ursula began, saying this without any ego or false modesty, simply sharing a fact which needed stating in the context. I was not only successful in business, but in sports, politics. I've even written a few successful books, including a novel or two. She paused to think a bit, wanting to express her complexity as best she could. My success did not come from having the right family. I am self-made all the way. It did not come from getting lucky either, or even from being talented, unless one considers a propensity for stubborn persistence, luck. I achieved much of my success through sheer trial and error, with large doses of patience. But in the language of my world, I can take credit for craftiness, a strategic perspective. I understand people, what makes them tick. I use that to great advantage. Most of the game on my world relates to personal status. Once I figured that out, I made the effort required to achieve that status. It was not important to me in itself, simply as a means to an end. Ursula went inward for a moment, then continued. I never really questioned the validity of my ambition or goals. I just accepted them. I was pursuing the highest goals of my society. There really weren't any others that are considered valid. With my success, I learned many things, acquired many skills, but mostly I came to understand whatever I wanted was mostly a function of time and effort, combined with strategy and motivation. If one has the patience and the energy, most goals can be accomplished. I say most because some goals get derailed by sheer bad luck or poor timing. I understood energy management, for instance, gave me a huge advantage. I understood leverage, how to use my energies efficiently. I understood efficiency. My first fortune came from the energy sector. It's surprising how many do not understand efficiency effectively. Ursula smiled with the group at that. All of this has led me to the reasonable belief I had it all figured out. Indeed, on my world, I do. In that context, now, there's not much I cannot do or get done without too much difficulty. I know how to organize, how to marshal resources, how to inspire, how to maintain motivation, how to lead. I have the abilities deemed important to be successful. I was lucky in one thing, however. I see now what a difference that makes. I never had much interest in the personal glory part. I just wanted to be successful. No, that's not entirely accurate either. Pursuit and attainment of the highest goals That's what motivated me. Ursula stopped, surveyed the group. Her confidence and poise excellent. No usual aspirant indeed. She had a point to make and wanted to make it in the best possible manner. I knew what I was doing on my world. Whatever I engaged in, I knew exactly what was involved, what was needed. I knew also I could deliver and provide whatever it was. I knew this. That's no small thing. I knew also what overconfidence and false confidence could do. That's what made me successful at politics. I started late and am already in line to be leader. This knowing is a big deal. It's hard to emphasize precisely how much difference it makes. I felt as if I understood my world. Indeed, I do understand it. There lies the crux of it. I really do. My world is not yet in the agglomeration. I'm in the first contact vanguard. So what I say on my world has to be viewed within that context. On my world, I am not only right about most things, but because of that, combined with all my success, I have the right of it also. Ursula paused, gathering the momentum for her closing. But, she emphasized, but coming here, meeting Biella, seeing this world, the system, made me acutely aware there is much more to life. There are higher goals, aspirations which actually make a difference to me, to how I am, to my beingness. I felt like a child listening to Biella. I felt like a child listening to Biella. Extremely difficult for me at first. I wanted to say things to bolster my ego, even though it was never a big deal to me as it is to others. It's nonetheless still a part of me. Ursula let her energies research. I fully understand how to play the game of personal power politics. In that game, you can never let a competitor automatically have the superior ground. To do that is to lose leverage. One can strategically cede position due to some temporary acquisition or situation, but never on the personal level. This I understood so well. My strength and success is directly related to my ability to project and maintain a presence of superiority. I knew how to maintain the perception that I had something. Of course, these are backed by very real successes. But real success isn't enough by itself. To be successful in the higher game, as it's called there, one has to have presence. One has to project and continually maintain an air of success. That air has to have a train to it, one others feel they can latch onto, and therein, by association, follow you along to success of their own. This interpersonal relationship to others is vital. Ursula
Yes.
looked at Biella.
Before we continue, sir, we have Lisa
Hmm.
here.
Yes, yes. Wonderful, Lisa. Wonderful. Lisa, do I have to start reading again, or did you catch some of the start here? I am
I
keen for Lisa to hear all of this. Ursula's been saying, she's been describing her success on her world and why she's successful, what made her successful, and so on. Essentially, she's just saying, perseverance, persistence, doing the right thing, things like that. And also not being too overly concerned with the ego side of it, but she simply was pursuing the highest goal a society had to offer. All right. We'll go over it tomorrow. Yes. Very good. All right, I'll continue. All right. Brilliant. But there's not much in the comments just yet, Lisa. Ursula looked at Biella. It's something I was very adept at. That is, until I met Biella. What was she adept at? This projection of within the higher game, this projection of having more, of superiority, of being on a path to success that others could latch onto and go, right? One has to project and continually maintain an air of success. That air has to have a train to it, one others feel they can latch onto, and therein, by association, follow you along to success of their own. This interpersonal relationship to others is vital. Ursula looked at Biella. It's something I was very adept at. That is, until I met Biella. I was stumped. Not only did I feel like an ignoramus, but anything I wanted to say which came up guided by my usual sense of interpersonal dominance was so obviously silly when interacting with her. A few things slipped out initially. They made not one bit of difference. I realized even if I had engaged all my considerable talents relating to personal power politics, they would have had zero effect on Biella. It probably only would have resulted in her dumbing down what she said to me. With that, Ursula let out a merry giggle. I was in a pickle. But I don't understand, interjected Camillus. Were you in a jam or a pickle? He questioned, sheepishly hanging his head. Lame joke, Camillus, lame joke. This statement took the group a bit by surprise. And then they laughed. Oh, you're all so wonderful, Ursula grinned. She skewered Camillus with a look. He was the only one besides Biella was not surprised. I suspect Camillus knows exactly what I mean, she said teasingly. Camillus had the good grace to blush ever so slightly. Yeah, yes, he stammered slightly. But then, he too broke into a huge laugh. Yes, he exclaimed. His yes apparently aimed at himself. But he pulled it back in, turning it back to Ursula. This was her show right now. It would be churlish to elaborate on his personal connectivity to the issue. He looked questioningly at Ursula, not needing to say any more. I was in a jam, Ursula picked right up. I did not know how to behave, for the first time even since I was a child. I couldn't really do anything without looking stupid. But, popped up Nora. Ursula smiled. But indeed, Nora. Or more like I was the butt. I was the butt of my own lifelong joke. Internally, whatever I felt I could say or add, which wasn't really anything, would only serve to expose my ignorance. Not only my ignorance, but had I made the usual types of conversation, where I would draw references to my success without directly naming them, so as to by implication boost my status and credibility, I only would have seemed childish. Such has no currency here, or certainly doesn't with Biella. Yes, she appreciates my abilities and accomplishments, but ego and status is a funny thing. It's not something we possess solely as individuals. A myth I discovered here. But ego and status is a funny thing. It's not something we possess solely as individuals. A myth I discovered here. Ego, status, it's a relationship, always relevant and associated to others. But it only works and connects and makes sense in its relative way when the others are engaged in the same dance. Interacting with someone to whom this is completely irrelevant is daunting. I had the great fortune to realize this and to keep my mouth shut, darling, as much as possible. Had I not realized this, I would have made a very great fool of myself indeed. Ursula looked at Nora, adding, and before you can add another but, they all laughed. Nora acknowledging with her laughter that indeed it had been about to emerge. It mattered to me, Nora, in my system, relative to what I encountered here. I realized it was silly to feel that way, but habit, Not only habit in this case, but also deliberate intent to maintain and live and use that system. Those are hard to let go. That's why I was in a pickle. I could not interact with Biella and be me. I could not interact with Biella and be me. That was my dilemma. Ursula sat down for a bit, then stood again. If I were to interact according to the me I have always been, I would just be inappropriate. Whatever I would say or add just defaulted to the ego and status perspective. That's no good here, that system. I was at a loss. This would be fine if I were to just treat the whole thing as an anomaly, ride it out until I got back to my world and then forget about it. But I could not do that. I cannot do that. I cannot. Ursula looked at Biella. You got into my head, as we would say on my world, completely. I could not leave it alone. I knew this without a doubt. That was my dilemma. I knew I would not be able to return to my life with any semblance of continuity. I would have to massively lie to myself for that to happen. Self-honesty has fortunately been one of my skills. I simply had to acknowledge the reality of the situation. And obviously, that massive change of some kind was in order. I was humbled, truly. I was humbled, truly. Out of my element, feeling I had nothing to contribute. Out of my element, feeling I had nothing to contribute. I guess I do. Everyone has, but not from the contexts I was expert at. I realized I could not engage with this world from the context of being that's appropriate on mine. But I asked myself, how would Biella fare on my world? Ursula shifted context somewhat, perhaps to relieve some self-imposed pressure. She looked at the group. They knew her question to be rhetorical, but one to which they were being invited to supply the obvious answers. Also, there was an element of Ursula checking and testing her perceptions. Learning fast indeed, she was. Biella turned, looking at Camillus, to his slight surprise. The question connected to where he'd left off earlier, with his yes exclamation, he realized. She was so quick. He said ingloriously, then laughed, a great big laugh. Of course she would be fine. It is me who is the fish out of water, or at least in unaccustomed waters. Yes, I know I'm mixing things together, but you know what is going on. Ha, I am learning, he said with mixed emotions. I am learning. But he glanced mischievously at Nora and was rewarded with a giggle. But I suspect were Biella to go there right now, as she's here now, right now, it would cause social havoc. He chuckled and touched wickedly at the thought. Yes, indeed, Ursula picked up the thread again. Biella would be confounding. They wouldn't know what to make of her. She'd present a massive problem. As I was fond of saying, there are no equals in chicken land. I grew up very rural. The pecking order does not allow for equality, she explained. Only higher or lower in that order. On my world, it's the same. Biella would be evaluated in those terms. Problematic because she's so utterly different to what they know. There's nothing like the new nobility on my world. We don't even have anything like the foolish old hereditary nobility, which I believe predated the new nobility, but was vastly different, if I understand correctly. Biella would be evaluated. There'd be attempts to place her in the pecking order. For most, if they were to encounter her, their first instinct would be to place Biella beneath them, because she does not do anything obvious to place herself above them. But there's such an air to her, the grace, the charm, the ease and fluidity, the confidence, though a humble confidence, the implicit self-assuredness. Even if they were only to see her, they would have to conclude, because of all that, she did not belong lower than them. It's an either-or system. If not obviously lower, then it has to be higher. Now, of course, it's a matter of reality for most. There are always those higher than them. Only those in their immediate sphere close to their position matter. So it's of no consequence to them if they were to place Biella higher. It'd be safe to do so as a strategic move to avoid possible future embarrassment. Those, however, who regard themselves with some measure of proficiency in whatever niche they claim to, would make an effort to peck on Biella. They'd have to. Her mere presence would threaten them. By contrast, the false world they have constructed around them to bolster their self-esteem and status would be exposed by simple comparison. The false world they have constructed around them to bolster their self-esteem and status would be exposed by simple comparison. Not everyone is willing to change their whole world to adapt to new information. Not everyone is willing to change their whole world to adapt to new information, no matter how compelling it is. Ursula almost glanced meaningfully at Camillus, but tactfully refrained. She didn't yet have that familiarity or license. There's a cascade effect on most status constructs. Once one part is shown to be false, the entire structure will typically collapse. It's why those go to such absurd lengths to bolster those falsities. This is, of course, if Biella were to go there precisely as she is here now. Ursula paused, looking at Biella, finding the reassurance to continue. The main point of my thought digression exploration was that I came to the conclusion, perhaps by some leaps and through becoming aware of the obvious, that Biella would maintain her integrity, even if that meant complete and total change. Biella would maintain her integrity, even if that meant complete and total change. Likely of the other system, I suspect, not her. Ursula grinned. The group echoed her sentiments, confirming and enjoying simultaneously. But she would not compromise her self-cohesion and ethics in any way. Of this I was sure. No matter. That's the conclusion which came and sat with me. That's the conclusion which came and sat with me. A fact I had to reconcile, or I would have to go back with compromise. Both entailed much. One massive effort to change, the other massive effort to maintain stasis. Not that I'd been in status, but that's what it would be now, considering the new horizons now available. Not there, yeah. I knew the cost of the latter. The price of the former, just a speculation. The key issue, radical change. But as a respected and popular historian on my old world is famous for saying, once you eliminate the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth. We'll come to that tomorrow. I feel I'm giving a lecture of sorts, but I've been encouraged to share my expertise. From what I gather, many of you come from very, very different worlds. As I understand it, the new nobility strive for appropriateness above all. To that end, we need to understand context. I hope my explanations will contribute to the understanding of that for you. But I wish to stay on topic. I'm sure we'll have plenty time later to delve into the dominant culture of my world. Our focus here is my statement. Ursula expressed where she was at, a way of coagulating her perspectives. She'd been paying attention to the way the new nobility used various techniques to facilitate comprehension and communication. Putting it all together led me to the only choice I had: change or die. Putting it all together led me to the only choice I had: change or die. Not literally, but as a person. If I went back to my world and tried to resume my life there, it'd be a slow death of myself. I know I cannot ignore overwhelming facts. It's one of my essential characteristics. I would not be able to lie to myself to create some elaborate redefinition. I've never had this facility I see so often in others on my world, to simply skip over and not see those facts which do not conform to their self-created and convenient views of their worlds. I've never been able to do that. I've always been a super realist. So I changed. Ursula stated simply but with joy. I did the only reasonable and sensible thing I could. I threw away all of my old life. I rid myself of the nonsense it was as a personal way of being, and changed. I rid myself of the nonsense it was as a personal way of being, and changed. Once I realized I had already changed, it was a snap to become an aspirant. Once I realized I had already changed, it was a snap to become an aspirant. When Biella mentioned anyone was welcome, regardless of age or origin, I was elated. I grabbed with both sides of myself. I see my only course of action as starting afresh, anew, to completely set aside the idea and belief that I know. To completely set aside the idea and belief that I know. To set aside I have something to contribute, that I have ability and competence. To set aside I have something to contribute, that I have ability and contribute. To set these aside. A quick glance at Nora to the delight of the group. Ursula continued. Yes, I know my past, my experience, my competence has value, but that value is highly contextual. And yes, again, I realize it can be abstracted to extend into larger contexts. But that change, that complete change, is for myself. It is to make it easy for myself. It's to get any resistance and obfuscation out of the way. A deep leverage of myself. I know if I go to the extreme, I'll be more open. I'll be evaluating from the ground up. I'll be building a completely new system. I'll be building a completely new system. Otherwise, I'd be in the position of modifying, adding and subtracting, which would be complicated. I would always be fighting the ego and status influence. I know I would not be able to help myself from trying to help by adding what I perceive to be of value. But I'm savvy enough to know I'm out of my depth here. Ursula smiled a deep smile of understanding. Of course, much of what the new nobility stands for, what I am learning, is obvious once encountered. There lies the greatest danger to a psychology like mine used to be. Of course, much of what the new nobility stands for, what I am learning, is obvious once encountered. There lies the greatest danger to a psychology like mine used to be. If I held on to my old self, I would be too tempted to claim that obviousness as my own. I would be too tempted to claim that obviousness as my own. I'm not willing to go down such a road. Much better to simply insist on being a neophyte. Let the system build itself within me anew. I truly believe it will be a great strategy to maintain that stance. Even as I learn more, understand more, by maintaining that posture, this new newbiness, Ursula grinned foolishly. It will continually prompt me to ask more questions, and through that will lead me to the unexpected. Wow. To the non-obvious, to what I cannot yet imagine. But what I could easily miss if I adopt a system which gets me to a false sense of understanding. The system once I have the majority of it. I lost there. Ursula grinned foolishly. It will continually prompt me to ask more questions, and through that will lead me to the unexpected, to the non-obvious, to what I cannot as yet imagine. But what I could easily miss if I adopt a system which gets me to a false sense of understanding. False sense of understanding the system once I have the majority of it. But what I could easily miss if I adopt a system which gets me to a false sense of understanding the system once I have the majority of it. I really feel we have to stay in that place of learning, that place of the aspirant, as long as we possibly can. Nora jumped up, closely followed by Aki, and hugged Ursula. They did so on behalf of the group to avoid awkwardness. Wonderful, just wonderful, Ursula, Camellia said. Biella smiled and beamed her love and appreciation, putting everything, it seemed, on hold for a while. After a long, beautiful, silent sharing and enjoying of Ursula, Shah stood. But, she said, borrowing the theme of the day, doing so seriously, however. Shah seldom spoke, but when she did, usually had a penetrating point. But there's a problem. She left off, looking first at Ursula, and then very briefly at Biella. She mostly said the minimum, and sometimes even less. I see what you mean, Ursula picked up for her. When do we know when it's time to let go of the most excellent strategy of being the perpetual aspirant? A sneaky, playful, yet thoughtful expression crept over her face and extended into her body. Yes, indeed, we are faced with a living anomaly right here, she said somewhat cryptically. Camellia fidgeted a bit, but relaxed when it became obvious he wasn't the focus. Yes. I'm intrigued at this conundrum, Ursula continued. It's at odds with everything I've experienced here. The one thing so far which does not add up. She looked at the group, inviting a response. A slight teasing, yet sober challenge to them all. What? Nora was almost dancing with excitement. Her normally quick mind had not made the connection. Shah and Ursula had hit upon a blind spot. Nora loved those, always eager to uncover them. Biella! Ursula exclaimed. Biella is the anomaly. Something is amiss with Biella, she said in a calculated to shock tone. The group lapsed to stunned silence, amazed. Something amiss with Biella? Could that be? Only Shah smiled. Spill, Shah! Marco demanded playfully but earnestly. Out with it! Biella is an aspirant, Shah said as if that explained it all. Yes, and? But evidently nothing more was forthcoming from Shah. They'd have to put it together for themselves. Biella saved them the trouble. Ursula and Shah are referring to the fact that I am still an aspirant. It's at odds with my behavior. They have nicely maneuvered me, not specifically with the intent to maneuver, but towards the inevitability of the end goal. Will someone please explain what is going on? Hermund said, his blue-faced deadpan as it usually was. Sometimes some things just did not click with him right away. It's time for me to become a new noble, Hermund, Biella said. But you are, he protested. Thank you for that, Hermund. And yes, but I mean formally, technically, I am still an aspirant. Oh, yes, I actually knew that. Oh, he grinned, transforming his face as he put it together. Yes, I see. We all just got used to you, I guess. A small voice filled the ensuing pause. Why? Was all it asked. If anyone could say less than Shah, it was the collective. They so rarely spoke, it was always a surprise. But the question was direct, straight at Biella's center. This should be interesting, Camellia said with anticipation, making space for Ursula to come sit beside him. The group rustled eagerly, keen to hear Biella's explanation. Said Biella, imitating Camelia's earlier throwing the tease right back at him, delighting the group. This is why they love Biella so, quick and playful, yet always maintaining the serious thread. But, she said, this time at Nora, Biella pitched the butt just right, distorting it comically to portray complete cluelessness. The group erupted in laughter. The wit of it they enjoyed, the quickness and the appropriateness of the joke connecting to the situation. The very fact Nora wasn't clueless in the least made it so hilarious. Camellia's, enthralled, radiated content. He loved humor. This unself-conscious, completely free and open humor, refreshing indeed. No embarrassment of and by anyone. No hidden agendas of implied slights and digs. What a thrill to be part of. He felt his own child self stir. I really have no but, Biella said. Biella laid on the double meaning by looking over her shoulder at her own small pert posterior, running her hands over it as if to prove its non-existence. But, these came individually, but in quick succession from different individuals. The group having great fun, most eager to hear the details, not letting Biella put off too much longer. Aware, however, as Biella was, humor an excellent refresher, most useful as a transition, especially after an extended period of intensity, such as they had had from Ursula. Biella moved to sit down, right in between Camelius and Ursula, demurely shaking her backside comically to make space, squeezing down in between them before they could move. She wiggled delightedly into the tight space. Ursula and Camelius could do nothing but share the joy. Camelius considered why he seemed to always be getting into the thick of things, despite his shyness and reluctance to be in the spotlight. He had that why me look on his face, a magnet for teasing. But the group would be careful, not ever pushing past the point where it was comfortable. Biella had already picked up on his ambivalence. The others took many of their cues from her. Camelius seemed uncomfortable and happy at the same time. Biella suspected he was caught in a contradiction of his own making. So very Camelius, delighting her. Now, she said, hooking her arms through theirs, the tale of my... Biella laughed so happily, pulling their hearts. I really have no word for my actions. I am somewhat at a loss for words. She straightened a bit, more serious. I have been nominated to be a new noble many times now. I've always turned it down, feeling I wasn't ready. I still feel that way. I think I'll always feel that way. I still want to feel that way. That's, I suspect, what Ursula's so perceptively connected to, by way of the perspicacious Shah and the collective. Shah, Ursula, There's never a point we stop being aspirants. Never. It's a lifelong endeavor. As Ursula so eloquently explained, it's a most excellent means to leverage ourselves. Maintaining that life stance ensures we're ever open to connection to what we don't yet know. I've always taken that most seriously, a prime consideration for me. Biella smiled slightly at herself. My tendency towards excessive modesty and humility also a factor. I overdid it somewhat. A sheepish admonition to herself. I'll say, said Camillus. He'd meant it seriously as a compliment, but the rest of the group had broken into laughter again. He tried to mock Scowl, but I was only rewarded with more laughter. This ability to slip into innocence so readily, fantastic and somewhat hard for him to comprehend. But, Biella said loudly with determination, no more butt dragging. She stood up with alacrity, dragging Ursula and Camillus to their feet with her, much to the amusement of all. Off to the admin office for us, right now, right this very instant. As Ursula still had to formally register as an aspirant, poor Camillus seemed to be dragged along simply as balance, but he didn't mind in the least. End chapter 5. Who realized they were alone, Norma? I missed your comment as I said it. Do you remember which part Norma was commenting on? It's not a negative aloneness, but without the nonsense and achievement. Yes, so not sad.
When Biella
Yeah.
was, sorry, when Ursula was sharing.
No, it's not alone in that context. This is that it's a purely personal matter in that context, rather. Yeah, but without the nonsense and achievement. Yes, exactly. Yes, exactly. Yes. So no, nothing sad. Nothing sad to this at all, Norma. Nothing at all. Ursula is profoundly joyful at her awareness and her realization, right? That she understands, had she not made this profound shift to give up her old life and embrace anew and start anew, not as Ursula continuing into this world, but Ursula the aspirant is starting as a child, open, fresh, not assuming they know, assuming they don't know, right? Ursula is insisting on assuming she doesn't know. Even though much of what's going to come is obvious once it comes, she's going to continue to assume she doesn't know so she can get to that sophisticated more. Once you start assuming you know, you shape it, you coagulate it, and now you make a little world of what you know. And the problem is that she's already realized she had a little world, and then she came into contact with Biella, and that world collapsed. But if she was to come in and assume she knows the obvious, she's going to create another new little world that's also going to be less. Because by implication, there's lots more to what Biella does. We're just seeing the consequence, the endpoint. And yes, the application, some of it is obvious, but what goes behind being able to be that way, that's a huge more. So Ursula is really saying in a very profound way that we have to make this effort to learn to resolve and solve that which is not yet a problem. We don't ever even think that there is problems that aren't problems and that we need to solve them. But this is exactly what Ursula is doing. Lisa says, hierarchies everywhere. Yes, it's the paradigm. That's why it's a paradigm, because it's everywhere, exactly. Naturally and unnaturally, there are gradients of beingness, of improvement, of strength. This concept that it can be avoided, if you will, or unnecessary, is confounding to me as there is little support for it. What is, I love this, sorry, I lost my thread there. What is It's in science, in physics, behaviorally, in learning, in knowing, appropriateness, energetically, spiritually. It seems to resonate as true only idealistically. Within an open mind, we can minimalize its effects on us. How can there ever be more as a knowing of moreness rather than otherness or something else, something different without it? Having thought much about it, it seems to me we are completely unique, yes, within a hierarchy of form. We are both form and formlessness. Form is consciousness, and consciousness is form. Wonderful share, wonderful share, wonderful share. Lisa, the resolution to your query is the story and also Way of Impeccability as its core foundation. Keep in mind the story here in the context of shifting the paradigm is presented as a course, part of the Moreness project, which is in the a continuation of Way of Impeccability. So to answer your question, one has to really do Way of Impeccability and then do the Moreness project as itself as the great collection of courses that it is, which starts off with the psychology of the superiority paradigm. If we wish to let go of something, we have to truly, truly, truly understand it fully so that we know where all the clips and hooks and tangles are that we can unhook from and let go of, right? And then there's capital H hearing, which is the bridge between the superiority paradigm and this particular perspective. Now, the nobleness paradigm is only a particular paradigm. It's not the contrast. It's not saying, well, you got this or you got that. No, it's an alternative, right? Not the only one. It simply happens to be the particular angle that I'm using to illustrate alternative perspectives and alternative paradigms. So we can do this. We absolutely can. But first we have to imagine what it is that we are looking to resolve. We don't yet know what the problems are because we haven't developed the ability to imagine problems not actually present yet. It's the point of that fishing story, as I'll come to when we share that, when we go through it in the week. Right? It's a very, very, very big deal. So there's a lot going on here, a lot going on. And in order to make the shift, we have to really, really, really make that shift. Yes. It's a big deal, for a big deal. And it can be done. It can be done. But it takes a lot of doing, as we're going to see with Ursula and Camillus and how their stories develop. We are going to see this contrast. And yes, it seems impossible, Lisa, that there can be an alternative to the superiority paradigm because it is a paradigm. It's in everything. But it can be, because if there's one paradigm, there can be others. A paradigm simply means it's overwhelming, not complete. There's a difference, right? So there is room for other paradigms. We have to make that room, extend it, expand it, push it by creating our own bubbles, right? So bubbles are flexible. When you create a bubble within a larger bubble, the more you expand your bubble, the more it shrinks the other bubble, at least relative to yourself. Yes. So it's absolutely this immersion into everything, an immersion into this world, into an alternative. Once in this case, we are using this as a mechanism for unhooking from the superiority paradigm. By immersing in an alternative paradigm, I can create it and truly immerse into it fully. I'm going to grow that bubble and make it big enough to be an alternative to the superiority paradigm. Once I've demonstrated that I am able to do so, to create an alternative, then I can choose if I wish to continue in this bubble or create some other one. Yeah. So this is the value of what we are doing here. Yes. Simply to demonstrate that other bubbles are possible. I mean, just the very way we chat and share, This is a very different to typical paradigms where there's competition and angling and, people looking to pull others down or suck up to them and stuff like this, right? So we're already demonstrating that. Yeah. Yes, correct. Hierarchical. Yes. I understand what you mean. I understand. Yeah. It's part of the same system. Yes, there is value. Exactly. There's value. Hierarchy doesn't necessarily have to be involved with superiority. Yes, absolutely. I mean, there's just in the hierarchy of conceptions, in terms of the way the new nobility understand conceptuality, there's appropriateness at the very top, and then from appropriateness we go down from there, right? As that mind map that I have, which that illustrates. But this is not, it's not hierarchy really in the usual sense of hierarchy. It's simply a connectivity that says this is a starting point. So it's more like story than it is hierarchy. Hierarchy tends to imply their superiority, but it's more connectivity, connectedness, relative placement for purposes of value. Start here, go there. If you do it the other way around, then you might miss some things. So it's really just path rather than hierarchy. But yes, one can arrange things like on our hard drives. There's hierarchy on our hard drives. There's just, conceptual understanding. Some things are more important than others. It doesn't make them better or superior. Uh, Maybe you could do that, but, superior is a status thing, really. Whereas more important, this has got to do with value, and that will change in those conceptions. One thing is more important today because of my desires, my context, and tomorrow it's different. So those things aren't so fixed, whereas in hierarchy it tends to be very fixed. Yes, a lot of effort goes into making it. I feel that if I take your comment on its overall, Lisa, my feeling that comes from it as a takeaway personally is that what you're saying connects to habit, the deeply entrenched habits of our lives. We so immersed in this paradigm that it feels like there's no alternative, that we're stuck with it. We have to deal with it and make the best we can out of it. Yes, Lisa? Beena, you have any comments on the story?
I was just enjoying the story, and as Lisa was saying about the hierarchy, um, this is again coming back to the dictionary of power. As I used to say, and still it is in habit. So sometimes we say that, oh, these are words, very profound words, but these are not words; these are concepts. And same with the hierarchy. It is not just a term; it's about the concept we have about. We can choose any word, anything, but then the transformation or the change must happen in the concept of it. So just as per my understanding, what Nobelia-Living is providing us a different perspective on the shift of the concept, not on the words. The usage of words, of course, it is important, and we can acquire new words and start using new words. But the concept needs to be changed. Like from very early age, we always encourage children, okay, climb stairs so you will go up. We give them in a subtle and the most, of course, and from the subtle to the most profound way, we keep giving them this cueing that going up is something superior, and this
Yeah.
is also the number in the increment of the number. Okay, this is the higher thing, and then we give them this concept about all these things, this hierarchy. What Lisa was saying, that it is there, it needs to be there. They are there is some order, okay, but the order doesn't mean that we have to actually really obey this thing. The concept needs to change. The order can be anything, okay, like the Moreness is also an order. If someone is coming before me, they have more experience in this world. I cannot deny this. There is an order. Okay.
Yeah.
But does it mean for me that I am less than them? No, this is not. So for me, it is just the concept.
Right. 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 Very powerful. So to go back to Lisa's comment there, right?
Yes.
She expands, says, the story does seem to imply hierarchy as bad or undesirable. It's natural, not habit. There is that superiority thing, and there is hierarchy. Yes, Lisa. Now, hierarchy is typically in our world associated with superiority. And in that sense, in that connectivity, when hierarchy is understood that way, absolutely the story says it's bad and undesirable. No question. And we have to understand, of course, like in most conceptions, they have different meanings in different contexts. Yes, so we can take hierarchy like when you're purely organizing your database or whatever. In that sense, of course, hierarchy isn't. But when it's connected to superiority, absolutely. And why is it then bad? Because then you have a hierarchical system which is based on relative difference only. The value lies in your relative difference. Whether I'm relatively better, this is what makes it better. Not because there's actual inherent goodness and growth and value in you being in the position that you are. No, you simply get value because it's better than everybody else. You might be the worst thing possible, but if you get to the top of the hierarchy, great. Right? This is the ideal. This is wonderful, right? See the negative of hierarchy, why it's considered bad or undesirable. Look at the hierarchy in lions. What does the alpha lion, what is their character like? Purely self-indulgent, purely obsessed with themselves and themselves alone. If they're hungry, then they go out and you know the pride goes and hunts with them, right? And then the thing gets killed. The alpha lion eats, gets the lion's share, where that comes from, and that's the end of it. The rest of you can fight over the scraps. There's no care for anything else. There's no community. There's no moreness. There's no bigger picture, right? It's all relative to the individual itself. And in that sense, that hierarchy, it doesn't lead to the improvement in an absolute actual way. It simply leads to dominance, which is relatively better. And you end up with this kind of nonsense, with a psychology, a character that's horrible. It's really terrible. It's uncaring, it's unthinking, it's unstrategic, it's short-sighted, it's limited, etc. Right. So that relativity is a very big deal. Yes. Yes, I understand what you're saying. They look up, but it's not up as in a hierarchical sense. It's appreciation for accomplishment, which is very different. I understand that it could seem that there's hierarchy going on in the story, but we have to really be careful, because how much of that is our habitual perception and the imposition of how we normally perceive, right? Everybody looks up to Biella. That comes from the superiority paradigm that we've grown up into. They're not seeing Biella as better than them, see? So they can't look up to her. They can admire her accomplishment and aspire to doing the same for themselves. But this doesn't make them relatively any better or worse. That's the part that gets left out. If someone has accomplished something that I see that I also want, I don't see them as better or worse. No, at least in the new nobility context, all they see is somebody who's made the particular effort. And now I can learn from them by following and looking at what they've done, not necessarily following in their path, but learning from it. Right? They've just done it before me. Doesn't make them better or worse. I can do it too if I want to. It's all a matter of time and effort. This is the point of the whole, sharing to a large extent. And part of Ursula's story is saying she wasn't particularly talented. She was simply patient, trial and error. She made effort. Right? So in that sense, we can all get there. It may go a little faster or slower, depending on our particular predilections. But that doesn't matter. There's no better or worse here. There's just enjoyment of difference. And this is part of the paradigm, that they celebrate difference. In that, when they're enjoying Biella, they are celebrating her difference. right? They're saying, yeah, you've accomplished what we are all trying to accomplish. This is fantastic because we get to learn from it. We get to enjoy it. It's a huge deal. It's a huge deal. Different thinking, Elisa. This problem of our habitual thinking, it's a deep problem. It's a very, very, very deep problem. Yeah, yeah, very, very deep problem.
Right. What I'm understanding from, of course, Lisa's comments, really profound, and yours, your explanation also about the story. Because for me, like specifically as Lisa mentioned, everybody looks up to Biella. Again, coming back to the point we started from, that okay, if we just start looking at the things from the lens of that they have a good intent and they are choosing things, crafting things deliberately, then our whole perception will change. Also, that I have, at least this is something I have observed, sometimes people are doing their things, they don't have any idea of superiority or any nonsense in their mind. They are just doing their own thing. But because me or anyone else, we are coming from this idea of superiority and hierarchy, we take things as that they are superior, and we get offended by that because we are not comfortable. And
Oh,
of course, it is something which should not be comfortable for anyone, but it's not about them. It is how I am perceiving things. So what I have learned, that even if someone is coming from or projecting this superiority, hierarchy, and all these nonsense, if we don't acknowledge that, and if we just keep focusing on the way I'm receiving a value and I'm doing my thing, it is going to completely shift the paradigm for me. I'm not saying that it is going to shift the paradigm for everyone, but it is going to shift the paradigm for me. Sometimes I see and observe people, they do things, sometimes maybe deliberately, I'm not sure about it, that okay, they want to show off, they just want to flaunt things. So what? If my intent is about me and I'm here to extract value, or anywhere I'm just there for my purpose, then these things are not going to bother me. I don't cue them that I'm understanding their superiority or hierarchy projection. And then I have seen that after some time, these things just get resolved because they understand that, okay, this person is not acknowledging this, not getting offended, not even appreciating. It is like not existing for her. Then everything dissolves automatically. So if we are equally responsible in this hierarchy, establishing this hierarchy paradigm, it's people who are projecting this and people who are perceiving it. No matter how much the other person try to project that, if we don't acknowledge that and keep our focus intact on what we are getting from this whole superiority paradigm diminished, like, okay, 50% right there, more later.
I think to add some really deep, profound perspective to this, if we were to ask Ursula right there in that where we left off in the interaction, Ursula, do you think Biella looks up to the others in the group here? To Aki and Nora and Amumt? What do you think Ursula would say?
In this situation about this paradigm
Or just in
superiority,
general, just in the observation of her interaction, that she's seen Ursula Biella interacting with the group, and just understanding of Biella so far.
I personally feel that Biella and Ursula both, and I don't know, I cannot be 100% sure about other aspirants and new nobles, but for Biella and Ursula, as far as I understand them, they they will never ever acknowledge this idea of superiority and hierarchy, even if it exists.
Correct.
So
Correct.
this is the thing for me, that from Ursula, she will not even notice it. Like, okay, yes, if whatever it is happening,
Right.
I am
Right.
focusing on my thing. no
Right.
matter what other
Right.
people are thinking
Right.
and
Right.
doing and behaving and
Right.
projecting.
But I
So
mean, in the context of Lisa's comment, where she put up in inverted commas, in the same way as they look up in inverted commas, kind of, they admire and appreciate Biella. Biella
good.
admires and appreciates them just as much. This is the entire point of being a perpetual aspirant. You're always looking up at everything in that up in inverted commas. So it's a very big, yes, yes. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, no, no. I love that you brought this up, Lisa. It's a fantastic point
Oh
to
yes,
make this
it's a
discernment
value.
between that hierarchy isn't always necessarily negative. It can simply be an ordering of something. Yes. So it's hierarchy in the story, and it came up in the story. It's hierarchy in the context of the superiority paradigm. That particular hierarchy, the hierarchy of status and ambition and climbing the ladder, right? The getting ahead in the world, that hierarchy, right? So it's a particular specific hierarchy that's implied, and not other hierarchies, like, when you arrange, like, let's say you're arranging how the genuses and species of animals and how they relate, and you say, okay, here's the one that starts and this follows from it. That's more of a hierarchy of time, like I said before, start here, go there, which
So
is, that's just a path
is it
rather
really bad,
than
Sil?
better. Say, is
Is
it
it
what?
really bad? If by any circumstances or by any chance someone just okay, of course it has to be started somewhere. So according to normal conventional studies, that okay, Adam was the first one. Does it give him any superiority on it? He was
No,
just there, or it could be anyone. So for
exactly.
me, this that as Lisa is mentioning that so obviously it is acknowledged. It was acknowledged. Yes, it might be from other people. They might be acknowledging that, of course,
Yeah,
yes, because in the old world, superiority paradigm was really very strongly established. So definitely they might be acknowledging, they understand that what's involved in it. But I'm saying it's not negating the existence of superiority paradigm. It
yeah,
was there. But what is happening right now to shift the paradigm, I am not reflecting it back to acknowledge that. Like, okay, yes,
yeah,
even if someone is coming and from the superiority paradigm or projecting it, me, just by being me and not focusing, not acknowledging their superiority nonsense, I am diminishing it right away. This is what I'm saying.
right,
I'm not saying
right,
that, okay, it doesn't exist.
right,
Of course, it does exist.
right,
It was the thing. And this is
right.
the need. That is the basic need for the new nobles and the new Nobelia-Living, because we want to get out
Yes,
of this old superiority-based paradigm in the old world. So
yeah,
for me, that is something I was just sharing my thing. And again, maybe I'm not able to elucidate it as much as I really like to. But
yeah,
for me,
yeah,
it's not about the negating the existence. It is about
yeah,
not reflecting it back what has been projected on me from the
yeah,
superior
yeah,
paradigm. This
yeah,
is what I'm saying.
yeah. Lisa, we cannot just look at hierarchy as having one meaning. So we can't say it's bad or natural. It depends. Hierarchy in lions is a terrible thing. Hierarchy in chickens is a terrible thing. Sorry. It may be natural. That doesn't make it good. It's horrible. As I explained earlier, it doesn't really lead to much value overall. It simply leads to an appearance of value. Even the one who's at the top of that superiority hierarchy, they don't benefit either. They always have to fight and struggle and guard and defend. So in that context, the hierarchy is synonymous with superiority, because in that context, and this is typically how it is with hierarchy, right? It is about ranking relative superiority, right? So yeah, it may be natural, but that doesn't necessarily make it valuable. It's terrible. The fact that it is natural is very unfortunate. And the reason it's natural is because it comes about because of competition for limited resources. That's why it gets there, and it's utilizing this this understanding of hierarchy to get a bigger share of the limited resources. It sees this as a strategy, which it is, but it's a very limited strategy because it ignores the understanding that through collaboration, and you can get much more than what is available, right? You can be much more effective. Like if the lions were to collaborate and say, hey, let's hunt enough to feed the whole pride, they'd have more than enough to do though. But they don't. They hunt because of the alpha, and the alpha says hunt because the alpha's hungry. It's preposterously selfish. So this natural hierarchy, which is ranking of superiority, is in that sense very, very negative. It's not even productive from a survival point of view. It's simply the best they've been able to come up with. Exactly. Exactly as Ramsey says, hierarchy in his chickens killed about 10% of them. It's a foolish system. But like most complex terms, we can't just say hierarchy and it applies across the board. It depends on the context. And this is part of the story, is to understand contextual application. Oh, very keen, very key. Spirit, so I need to understand a bit more here what you're saying. I lost the thread a bit there. Yes, Ramsey, your point about superiority earlier was also a cool point. Let's see. It's nature, though. It's related to form. We are formed and formless, or formed and formlessness. Focusing on formlessness gets us closer to what you point to, spirit. Yes. Lisa, simply because things are natural, to me, it doesn't necessarily mean they are good. Natural has become synonymous with good, but I don't necessarily feel so. And in this sense, hierarchy, yes, it's very natural, as is superiority, but that doesn't necessarily make it to be good. There are other forms out there. There are collaborative beings and so on in nature too. So it's not the only natural option. I think we need to learn from all of them. It happens to be predominant in nature, but just because it's predominant doesn't mean it's the best option. Yeah. It predominates because of short-sightedness. In other words, it predominates because of lack of awareness. Those inside it can't see any other alternative. They cannot imagine that there are problems which they do not yet see that they need solutions to. Way too complex, which is the point of this chapter. That's why the comment there from the gods, Jesus in particular, saying, we really do need to learn to anticipate, to look forward, to imagine problems which we do not yet encounter. He's stating that we will. And Nintu's story is precisely about fishing being a problem that those who fish don't realize they have, as you're going to see later on in the story. Yeah. And, from the new nobility point of view, they're saying, yes, it's a part of our existence, but we aim to change it. Simply because it's there, it doesn't mean it has to stay there. We're going to evolve. And it's to them, this is what they wish to do, is to evolve, yes? And it's why the gods are in the story. They, of all the different elements in the story, are ones who actually do have the capability of living in a different paradigm, and yet they don't. So they are the contrast here to say, if we have other options available to us, what do we do in order to not be in this jam that we're in? We are much constrained in our world today here by the superiority paradigm. It's difficult to break free from it, right? And not to be involved with it. And that's why, as part of the Moreness project, you have the psychology of the superiority paradigm, We need to understand it so that we can deal with it. But also through that, we understand how to unhook from it and create alternatives. Yes, and we want to not just have less of it as we evolve, but evolve to the point where we don't have it at all, where we can evolve to the point where we can create an alternative system, an alternative reality, an alternative paradigm, which we can live in. Yes. So this is the deeper arc of the story. This arc of looking to how we can, getting all the elements in place. There's a deep, deep arc from a philosophical point of view from the new nobility, where they understand the limitations of power. And they are saying, we don't want to yet have the powers that we know are available to us until we have made it so innate in us, this absence of hierarchy and superiority and dominance and status, where it's totally so completely against our very natures that it would be impossible for us to implement should we have the power to do so. That we cannot be corrupted by power, not will not, but cannot. This is their longer term goal. So they put off acquiring potential powers of being, which they know are available to them, because they want to be absolutely, completely, absolutely skilled at being able to withstand, resist the temptations of the superiority paradigm, and also able to implement its alternatives. It's a very deep point. So they are looking to evolve, not into evolving to where they have greater abilities. That will come later, but evolve to where they are able to live in an alternative paradigm and be an alternative paradigm. Better late than never, says sure. Yes, sure. Yes, yes. We're talking about hierarchy and superiority and how they are connected, and how hierarchy can also be something else that's not necessarily a negative. It's negative in the context of the superiority paradigm, where it's this ranking of superiority, and it's a very shallow, artificial mechanism. There's perceived value, not actual value. And the perceived value is not very real, at least not in our world. Like in the world of the lion, yes, there's a real value to being higher up in the hierarchy. If you're at the bottom, like in the chickens that Ramsey says, that 10% were at the bottom of the pecking order and they died because they didn't get enough food. Or were bullied into death too, pecked to death. It's a terrible thing because they perceived as extra competition for the food. So when there's not really a shortage, but yet it led to that, right? Terrible thing, terrible thing. It's embedded in our language also. Yes, Lisa, that's a great point. This is a great point. I love this. And this is the care that we want to take in paying attention to our language. It's why the other title of Way of Impeccability is the language of conceptionality. To actually acquire this language is a very important language. To understand how to conceptualize, to conceive, it's critically important. It's critically important. If we don't know how to conceive, how are we possibly going to conceive solutions and resolutions to problems we don't yet have and don't even realize we have, like in the fishing story? Yes, we're going to come to that fishing story. It's a very profound story that Nantu shares. Well, I can actually share it now because it's going to be at the start of this chapter. So the end of the story, it's going to be a fun story. There's kind of a bit more to it, but I'm just going to skip to the end. The end of it is this young woman's fishing technique involves having a crow's nest of her line, right? I don't know, any of you have ever gone fishing, right? Especially when you were children. At some point, your line fell off the reel, or if you're using a hand line, whatever, and it got all tangled and it became this inglorious mess, right? We call them crow's nests, right? A tangled mess of fishing line. What do most people do with that? Well, maybe you try and untangle it, but the more you try, the more worse it gets. Eventually, you just throw it all away, right? But Beena shared a profound video of this Iranian woman. Now, initially Beena shared it because she was sharing the way the woman walked. She was walking over very rough terrain. There was barely a path. There were these big rocks, and she was nimbly walking and very confidently walking, and she kept moving. And even when there were loose rocks under her feet, she didn't put all the weight there. She had a movement. It was just a profound thing of confidence, movement, balance, trust, etc. It's a very, very fun share. Beena can share it at some point. Right? If you can, creative thinking, yes, very, very creative thinking. But we buy into that message of hierarchy. Unfortunately, yes, absolutely. So now, in the story of the Iranian woman, or this video that Beena shared, the woman gets to a river, and it's like other side of a mountain, and it's very barren and bare there, but she's going there to fish. So out she goes and she starts fishing, but at first you can't see what she's doing. And now she's fishing, just fishing with the hand line, because the camera doesn't pick it up. Only when she starts to pull it out and she says, oh, yes, some fish coming. And then they zoom in, because it's a documentary on her life. And they zoom into her now and they see the fish. Then could we see this crow's nest? What she'd done, instead of throwing away that crow's nest, she'd used it to fish with. Right? She turned a disadvantage into an advantage. She'd learned to solve a problem that every single fisherman who's fished with line, and when you're fishing for, I don't know how long, fishing line has been around, but it's certainly been around probably for 100 years or so, I would imagine. Right? Everybody who's fished with fishing line had the solution available to them. But they never thought they had a problem. They thought the problem lay in using the right bait or the right flies or fishing in the right place. No, all she did was take that crow's nest and throw it in. She had a little floater that, adjusted the height of it, and she dragged it through the river. Any fish that came near it, they didn't see it because it's the line filament, and they swam into it and got stuck, and then she caught them, right? Very simple. A paradigm shift in fishing. If you've ever fished, fishing is kind of difficult. You're not guaranteed to get fish. With that method, if there's fish in the river, you throw it in and you drag it around, and you're just going to catch them. That's it. You're never going to have a problem fishing again with that method. Fishing is easy. And this is, of course, the young woman in the story uses this. She just spends all day chucking this thing in the river, pulling out the fish. She throws them out to the bank and moves further up and down the river until she had enough fish. Very simple. Right? It's just a matter of time and energy. Right? No skill involved. But as the story gets, there's more to the story, as there always is with such stories, right? They come to watch her and see. They want to see how she's doing all this. So she puts a hook on there, and she fiddles with it, and she hides her special bait, supposedly. And then she gets, she's kind of clumsy, and it seems like she gets her line tangled all the time. And, she gets all frustrated and bent out. And they just think she's a bit of a klutz and a bit stupid. And yet when she pulls it in, she takes the fish out underwater, so they can't see that she's taking the fish out from the tangled line rather than from a hook. So they just think that she's got some special bait or whatever, and they try and figure this out. They can't imagine that she is succeeding because of what they would consider bungling. Yeah. So because the superiority paradigm thinking won't allow them to. But she's being very, very strategic. And part of that point is the strategy of sometimes don't show your strategy. And sometimes just be seen as lucky. And then people will leave you alone after a while. So after a while, they just think she's like ridiculously lucky, and then they stop bothering her and they let her do her thing. Anyway, there's a lot to that story. But the point of it is that with that fishing technique, most people who've gone fishing never realized that the way they were fishing was a problem, a huge problem. They thought it's the bait or where you throw it in, how you cast and all this stuff, right? Technique, not the actual fishing mechanism itself. Yeah. So you can just make a mess of your line, throw it into the river, and there you go. Life is easy. Tie it to anything to serve as a little floater to give it some height, so it doesn't just sit on top or sink at the bottom or whatever. Anyway, so but a very creative strategy there, very simple mechanism, but it's resolving a problem that most didn't think they had. And I want to really emphasize this point, right? In Ursula coming to Nobelia, she never thought she had a problem, never imagined she had a problem. But as she thought about it, she would have realized she's not nearly as fulfilled and content and joyous and happy and thrilled and eager and enthusiastic as what she is now. right? She would have realized back on her life that, yes, there's more. If she'd looked at the actuality of the situation. If you look at the actuality of going out and typically fishing, you put the bait and you got to find the bait, dig up the worms, put the worms on the hook, and all this stuff, right? And you put it in there and you wait and you wait and you wait. I mean, dang, if you look at fishing as an efficiency issue, it's horrible, massive problem. But we don't consider it to be a problem. It's even become a sport and a relax where people don't care if they actually catch fish. They just like the idea of trying, right? It's evolved into something else. Problems we don't know we have is what I'm saying. But when we start to think in this different way, we can reverse engineer and say, what would it have taken me to go fishing and then to say, wow, I can do this with a fishing line? But that's for another time. We'll get into that. Yeah. Lisa says, if this world of dominance is what the current consciousness creates, then we do need to shift from this to create a new world, which happens through consciousness, the formlessness. Exactly. Awareness, in other words. It's the point and purpose of everything. Awareness, enhancement, and development of awareness, not just having awareness, because awareness, of course, is a relative term. You can be aware and only have a little teeny bit of it, right? Like, I mean, the ant is aware. If you start doing something to the ant, it knows to go this way or that, to move away from danger. So there's some awareness there, right? But how much? So the point and purpose of life is to enhance and develop awareness. Yeah. This is very, very crucial. So to get out of the superiority paradigm where I just have to look around, and I think the universe says, let me put you in a system which, if you think just a little bit, you're going to say, hey, this sucks, like fishing. If you're fishing to actually, as a value, not as sport or entertainment, but actually, in order to feed yourself, you're going to say, man, this sucks. This is a terrible way. It's very slow. Let me see if I can't improve it. Yeah. But we have to have that desire to improve, which we don't. We think the system as it is, it's just a matter of doing it in the same way, but better. Like, let me get better bait. Let me find a better fishing hole, blah, blah, blah. It still sucks. No matter, even if you find all those things, it's still not a good system when it comes to efficiency. So likewise, when we look at the superiority paradigm, we say, man, this is a horrible system. This sucks. No matter how high or low I'm in, it's a horrible system. I want no part of it. And we find an alternative. At least this is for me, being a big deal in my life. I don't want to be part of that system. It's a sucky system. But we need to have this, like you say, Lisa, right? We do need to develop different consciousness or different awareness. Exactly. To be deliberate in doing this, to be deliberate in doing this. And to deliberately start looking, what are the problems I have in my life that I'm not aware I have? How? This changes so much. It's a massive point in the story. Like Ursula, didn't realize she had a problem. Cornelius didn't realize he had a problem. Ursula, fortunately, did come to realize it and acted on it. In a very sophisticated way. That point that she makes, we'll go over this tomorrow and this week through in the capital R reading. This point that she makes about this needing to maintain her perspective as an aspirant, as a perpetual aspirant, as starting off as ignorant, to resist the temptation to say, I know, oh, it's there, it's obvious. Boy, this is a sophistication that is ridiculously profound. So not only does she do something special in terms of giving up this life of success, because of her honesty forces her to do that, but she also adds that extra element of sophistication to it. It's a very, very potent part of the chapter. She's surrendering. I promised in the other group there that this was about surrender. So in case they watch the replay here, she's surrendering to the understanding of her honesty. She cannot continue to live the way she was, knowing there's a more out there. Can't do it. She can't do it. She can't maintain that illusion that what she has is enough, is the all, is the be all, is the pinnacle. No, it's nonsense. It's complete BS, right? And she can't do that. She cannot sacrifice her integrity in order to keep that going. So she has to set aside her ego. She has to set aside all that nonsense and say, look, I don't want no part of that. I'm going to start afresh. It's the only option I really have if I want to live as a real person, not live in BS. Very, very, very profound. Very profound. All right, Norma. Yes, it's time. It's a good time to leave this. Unless anyone else has more comments. Beena, anything more to share? We got a little time. Yeah. See you, Norma. Bye-bye, Norma. I'm glad you were here, Norma. Beena?
It's a very sophisticated point actually, because
Oh, it's huge. Yeah.
we are discussing superiority paradigm. We are discussing surrender, which is very interesting, because for me surrender was like, okay, or something I'm giving up, and it is coming from like a permanent thing, like it's like done thing. Now I have surrendered myself. So that's why I was a bit cautious of using this term. And so instead of it was like, okay, I'm choosing to be receptive. This is
Yeah.
something like I'm doing it deliberately every single time.
Yeah.
And if and I'm not going to be influenced, I'm not giving up something. So for me, that's why I was very cautious. But what you are discussing, it does make a lot of sense to me. But as Lisa shared a lot about this superiority paradigm, it all adds up to
Yeah.
that more clarity, because it is a complex understanding.
Yes.
It's a complex awareness. So it requires that much discernment. So thank
Yes.
you so much for
So
sharing all.
let's look at Ursula's surrender and
Yes,
what it actually means. What is she surrendering to? She's surrendering to truth. Yes, it's as simple as that. The truth of it is that there's a more that she's encountering here, which somewhat invalidates her own old life. She can't hold on to it. It's losing its value now, because she's seeing that there's something else that she never really knew existed. In other words,
yes,
she had a problem she never realized she had. The truth
yes,
of it simply is she cannot go back. She cannot also be herself in this world, as she spelt out so beautifully, that if she
yes,
continued with her old system, her old way of being, she'd just be ridiculous here. It would be absurd. Not that it would bother Biella. Like she said, it would probably just cause Biella to dumb down things and okay, you're not quite getting the sophistication. I have to simplify it a little bit. Right? And so there's no point to it. So she has to change to make it all work, to make all of the truth fit and have an appropriate way of working. So she's looking at it in a very efficient and effective way, because she says she really does understand effectiveness and efficiency both together, which is really impeccability. Yes. Best use of energy. So he says the only way I can make this work efficiently and effectively is to set aside all my old ways of being, which worked in that system but don't work here. This is too
yes,
fantastic. This is too fantastic what she does. And she just starts over. That's it. Very simple. She says, I do, but don't have an option. Yes, surrender is the only option for me. To surrender my egos want to be part of the paradigm for acceptance. Exactly. Exactly. So by surrender to truth. Our truth is more. Absolutely. And it is giving over to truth, which is saying, yes, when we talk typical surrender, we say, I give up my power. But when I surrender to truth, I don't give up my power, but acquire power. When we surrender to truth, we don't give up power, but acquire power. It's one of those conundrums, those counterbalancing conundrums, coexisting contradiction. Yeah, truth is a
yes,
very different thing to surrender to than to everything else. You're surrendering to sensibility, to sobriety. See, it all depends on the conception. So this is how we get to surrender without surrendering. It makes sense. It's a very big deal. So Ursula's surrender here is to that deeper sobriety, to her integrity, to her conscience, right? To her own sense of realness, to say, this is the only thing I can do. She works it out. That's the other thing that Ursula does that's important. She's thinking it through to the end. She really did think it through to say, I have no choice. I have no option. Either I go back and live a lie, or I'm inappropriate here, which is, again, if I keep my old self, I'm going to be, it's not really valid here. It doesn't really work here. It's again a lie to say, oh yeah, I've got value, let me. No. So she cannot maintain, she cannot live lies. Sets them all aside, starts with the only option she has. Yeah. Sure says, when I don't surrender is when I lose sight of our purpose or why. Resistance is futile. Oh, my purpose, when I lose sight of my purpose or why. Exactly. Exactly. Resistance to truth is futile. Correct. So it's important to understand that when we use this term surrender, what it is we are surrendering to. To surrender to truth is simply to attune to the way of things as they are. Yes, the greater way of things as they are, not the lesser, not the smaller context, which in the big picture, from a universal perspective, the superiority paradigm is a bubble in the bigger picture. A bubble, a bubble, a bubble, a bubble. Yeah. A bubble that most don't realize is a problem because it's such a big bubble. They don't see it as a bubble. This is where we want to train our brains to think differently. And why, when we get the same things coming at us, say, but I've learned this lesson. Why are you bringing it to me again? To learn to be creative in finding solutions that you don't need to find, but to develop the ability to find additional extra perspectives, extra solutions, extra resolutions. Why is this important? Because when you develop this ability to do so, you can apply it to resolving problems you don't yet know you have. It's an incredible skill. It's an incredible skill, because now we can leapfrog out of the situations we're in. We think they're okay and we're doing whatever we can. We don't even realize there are solutions at hand, like that fishing solution. Everybody who's ever fished and had line could have come up with that. Everyone, right? Simply a matter of having the brain think differently, right? So why didn't we come up with that solution? Because we didn't think to think of it. We didn't think to think of it. And this is the big point that I'm going here. The new nobility as a society do think to think of things they don't need to think of, but think so in anticipation. So this is why you get such sophistication and ability from Biella. She's pre-prepared. Yeah. She's looked at the thing from a longer term, bigger thing. She's anticipated problems she might have and could have. Yeah. And going extra. This is what nobility is, doing extra goodness. She's being kind and courteous and considerate to Nobelius in a very profound way, and to all the others as well, not just to Nobelius, right? Going extra. Yeah, it's a big deal, big deal, big deal. Lots going on in the story. Very deep, multi-layered story. Beena, anything else?
I think that this is a good point to wrap it up, because it's a profound point.
I agree.
And sometimes it is better to leave it something to think about later on, let it rest. So yes, I guess that's a good point. We have covered this.
To surrender to the truth of ourselves. This is the intent. Yes.
Yes.
This is the intent.
Okay. Exactly.
Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye,
Yes,
everybody.
thank you
Go
so
with
much.
Moreness.
Thank you so much, thank you, Lisa, Norma, whoever is going to listen to this. And thank you so much, Sil, for sharing. This is, I say thank you, and Sil always say that, okay? It's not just about the thank you. And I said, I really feel thankful towards people who bring their energy, their perspective, and they share
Yes,
things.
I
That is
appreciate
the
it.
real thing
Yes,
that.
yes,
Also that the moreness you guys bring always make it more and more and more. There are time in life when we have this opportunity, when we have this luxury to spend our time wisely, and we can really bring moreness into our life. Not every time, not in every phase of our life we can do this.
yeah,
I personally feel that I'm very fortunate in this regard, that I have this opportunity at this stage of my life. So I can put the rest of my life, whatever it is. It could be just a single day, or it could be years. I don't know, but I do feel that at least I have some positivity towards my life, that it is going to
yes,
be right path. That is the real
yes,
thing. So
yes,
I personally feel
yes,
that we are having this luxury, we are having this profound opportunity, and we all are grabbing it. That's the
yes,
real beauty of it.
yes. And in the context of that hierarchy and superiority, to realize that even though we might be in the habit of thinking and connecting to it, we don't need to be. We cannot yet
Yes.
possibly imagine yet how we can unhook from the superiority paradigm, but that doesn't matter. Just because we can't imagine it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Just because we couldn't imagine a vastly improved way of fishing doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It does.
Yes.
It's right there. It was right there available to us. Yes.
Yes.
So just because we cannot imagine it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. We can't imagine unhooking and not being connected to the superiority paradigm, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Just because we can't imagine doesn't mean that we mustn't try. Yes, we have to venture forth knowing that there are possibilities out there. We just need to learn them and imagine them. We have to learn to imagine them, and then they become real. Like in this alternative fishing mechanism. Once you learn how to imagine it, it's right there. It's so simple, so simple, so simple. It required imagination, thinking differently, alternative strategizing, a different belief system, etc., etc. Right? So just because we can't imagine how to get out of the superiority paradigm doesn't mean that we mustn't try. Just because we can't imagine how doesn't mean we mustn't try.
Yes.
All right. On that profound note, we'll
Yes.
end it right here, right? All right. I'll come right back
Yes.
onto
We just
Zoom. I'm
just
just going to end it all.
just a minute. Just a minute, sir.
Oh.
I think that Lucia, she asked about the link.
Oh, that was it. That's for Joey's thing, not for this.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I just misunderstood that.
Yeah,
So thank you
I
so
put
much.
the link to this in the CCC chat, not in that
Okay.
one. So different thing. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you,
So
though.
thank you
Thank you.
so
Thank you,
much.
though.
Thank you. And
Yeah.
we'll see you guys tomorrow at our regular time at 10.
Yes, and tomorrow we're really going to go slowly and go through this. There was so much in the story today. It's almost overwhelming. I feel it overwhelming, and
Yes.
it's a big deal. So I'm keen to go through it slowly. I'm struggling to get to share all the moreness that's involved in this. It's such a big deal when it comes to attitude and mindset and perception and belief, especially belief. Yeah. We've got to change those beliefs. All right. Just too
Okay,
wonderful.
everyone.
I look forward
Bye
to
for
seeing you
now.
all. All right. Bye.
See you
End
tomorrow.
meeting for all. End meeting for all.